Good morning. Welcome to All Souls Unitarian Universalist Congregation in New London, Connecticut. I'm Ann Kadlecek, the intern minister, here this morning with senior minister, Reverend Carolyn Patierno. We have Jesse Edwards handling the technical side, slides by Tammy. The Halvertsons are lighting our chalice, and Bil Groth is on piano. And I'm so glad you're here. Let's settle in to this space that we create together from wherever we are. Our opening words are from Mickey Scott Bay Jones. Together, we will create brave space, because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars. We have all caused wounds. In this space, we call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together. And we will work on it side by side. Come in to this space. Welcome to All Souls, where all souls are welcome. You are joyfully called to worship. Our opening hymn is one we haven't sung for a while, and I realized I've been missing it. So Bob Bunting will lead us in hymn 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Rejoice and come in. Enter, rejoice and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
And I have missed that hymn too. I didn't realize it until you just said it, and I thank you for choosing it, and I thank Bob so much for leading us in song. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. And now I have the great delight of introducing our chalice lighters, Ali, Evie, and Olive, who will introduce the youngest soul among us. Welcome to you all, and thank you so much for being with us this morning.
My name's Evie, and your name's always right. Yeah. And this is my new baby sister, Indy. Always open the curtain, please. And here's Mommy. And my cute peanut. Mwah. My cute peanut. Mwah.
Okay.
She's a little cutie nut. Yeah, and she always listens to me.
We say these words together. We light this chalice to affirm the new light that breaks through to enlighten our ways, the new truth that breaks through to illuminate our minds, and the new love that breaks through to warm our hearts. May we be open to this light, truth, and love, and to the rich possibilities they bring.
Thank you very much, Ali, Evie, Olive, and Indy. Lovely to see you all this morning. Thank you. And now we turn to our candle of gratitude. As the poet said, we exist in the real world. Last week in the real world, our kin in Midwestern and Southern states were pummeled with the devastating consequences of climate change. 493,000 of our kin in the United States died from COVID-19 in total. Black and Latinx communities are lagging behind in vaccination access. And tragically, right here at home, a New London high school student was the victim of gun violence, leaving his family and community reeling in agony. That is the real world. And so together in this brave space, we mourn and we determine to do our part. We look for the new light, the new love that breaks through, and we practice gratitude. And so for what do you give thanks this morning? I invite you to say it out loud at home or to write it into the chat for all of us to witness. And in the meantime, I will share for what I give thanks. I give thanks for small acts of kindness, such as First Lady Dr. Jill Biden festooning the White House lawn with visions of love and hope, big red and pink and white hearts. I'm sure you all saw images of that act of kindness. I give thanks for my friend and yours, Reverend Florence Clark, who has been in our pulpit multiple times. Reverend Clark celebrated her 80th birthday this weekend, and yesterday there was a raucous drive-by celebration to celebrate all that she has contributed to our community and the joy she brings to those who love her so much. And finally, and of course, I give thanks for your company this morning and through all the tumult and the strife, and through, of course, so much joy, so many instances of it these many years. We light this candle of gratitude.
Back in 2015, there was a dress that it seemed like everybody was talking about. All over social media, people were arguing about what color it was. About half said it was white and gold. The others were sure it was blue and black. What do you see? Reverend Carolyn, what color is this dress?
When I first looked at it, it looked blue and brown, and today it looks gold and white.
I see gold and white. At the time, people continued to argue, even after a different photo showed it was definitely, ready for it? Blue and black. To me, it's still white and gold. I cannot make my brain tell me it's blue and black. Can you?
Absolutely not.
So what's going on here is probably related to poor lighting. Human eyes can't tell what color it is, so our brains fill in the missing information in different ways. Nobody knows exactly why some of our brains say it's blue and black or blue and brown, while others go with white and gold. But none of our brains say, I don't know. Our brains like things to be clear. Sometimes we see things that don't make sense, so our brain fills in missing information so we won't be too confused. Basically, our brain is making up a story for us, but it seems real. That's what's going on when we look at optical illusions. Like this famous picture from way back in 1892. What do you see?
I see a rabbit.
For most of us, when we first look at this picture, our brain makes a quick decision about what it is. We see a rabbit, or we see a duck. Either way, we don't notice that there's another possibility unless somebody tells us to look again.
So look again. The rabbit's long ears suddenly become the duck's long beak.
Right. So we thought we knew what the picture was, but it turns out there are more possibilities than we realize. Here's another. What's this a picture of?
Of course, at first, I see a chalice. I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister. I see a chalice.
And it is a chalice. It's a picture of a dark chalice. But what if the darkness is the in-between space? Then what do you see? Right? It becomes faces, two faces, nose to nose. So there are two very different ways to look at each of these pictures. But to see them both, we have to be willing to keep looking even after we think we know the answer. Now, in some illusions, our brain decides the picture is just like something it's already seen, when maybe it isn't. This one is called the checker shadow illusion. So do you see two squares marked A and B? Which one is darker?
A is clearly darker than B.
It sure looks like it. But no, they are exactly the same color. I had to prove this to myself by putting this picture in an image editor and then matching the same color to both squares. It works. And even then, I don't see it. It blows my mind. Let's do one more. How about this one?
I see a blue circle on top of some black lines.
That's what I see too. But there's no circle. Just parts of the lines are blue. Our brains totally made up that circle, filling in between the lines so the picture makes more sense. Optical illusions are fun to play with, and they tell us something about how we perceive the world. Our brains do these same things, jumping to conclusions, filling in missing information, and making stuff up all the time. Mostly our brain gets it right, or close enough as makes no difference. But sometimes, even though we're sure we're right, we miss part of the story, or we just plain get it wrong. So ends our time with optical illusions. Thank you for playing along. Our reading this morning is a story by Hans Christian Andersen. Margaret Silf did a retelling, and then Ellen Quadgrass and I adapted it further. We call it Two Windows.
This is a story about God, the devil, and two beautiful windows. In this story, the devil takes great delight in creating confusion. And so he once crafted a very special window. When people looked through it, all the good and beautiful things in the world appeared very, very small. and all the fearful, ugly, and bad things of life were enlarged. People who looked through that giant lens then became afraid, disconnected, less caring toward one another. One day, the devil was laughing so hard over all the trouble that their window had caused that it slipped out of their hand and shattered into thousands and millions of fragments, some as small as grains of sand or dust. Then a great wind arose and blew the fragments around the world, and they became lodged in people's eyes. And from then on, when people looked upon their world, they saw clearly things that were frightful, while all the good things shrank until they were almost invisible. Now, this made God very, very sad. God didn't want people unable to see what was good and beautiful. So God crafted another window, a kind of corrective lens, one that would put fearful things back into perspective and make beauty right-sized. And God asked an angel to deliver the window to all the unhappy people who really needed it. Unfortunately, on their way to deliver this precious, life-changing window, the angel tripped and fell. And this window, too, shattered into thousands and millions of small fragments. What might have become of all those tiny little fragments? And with that question, so ends the reading.
Many years ago, I enrolled my son Michael in a preschool karate class. The room had these big floor-to-ceiling mirrors, and I watched him spend the entire class posing in those mirrors as a Tyrannosaurus Rex. He had little arms with big claws, scary teeth. He clomped around like you might imagine for a T-Rex. The entire class. In another dinosaur moment, it was bedtime, and I suddenly heard loud sobbing from his room. I ran in and I learned that the problem was that his tail was too long to fit under the blankets. I didn't see a tail, but we spent several minutes figuring out how to coil it up so it could fit on his bed along with the rest of his dinosaur body. One last early Michael memory, and I should say that Michael has generously given me permission to share these stories. He was 3 when he told me one day that he was the Gronger. I asked for clarification, as one does, and learned that meant he was a big, tall man who was very strong. And for several weeks, as he shifted back and forth between small boy and the Gronger, I could always tell which he was. As the Gronger, he stood taller. His voice deepened. His behavior, even his language, changed. He saw himself and his place in the world differently. He was different when the story in his head was that he was the Gronger. Well, okay, he was 3. Those of us who are a little older have outgrown stuff like that, right? Yeah, no. We all have stories in our heads that influence how we see ourselves, one another, and the world. The very young are often wonderfully uninhibited about sharing those stories. As we get older, we learn to hide them, even from ourselves. Ours may or may not involve dinosaurs, but we've got stories about how the world works, what it takes to survive, what we should fear, who deserves our attention. Some go deep into our identity, who we are, who we're supposed to be, what we're entitled to, our own worth. These stories help us navigate a very complicated world. And they don't always fully match reality. To keep us from getting too confused, our brains change things around and add in old understandings. In the words of neuroscientist Bo Lotto, the brain did not evolve to see the world as it is. The brain evolved to see the world in the way it was useful to see it in the past. The brain did not evolve to see the world as it is. It evolved to see it as it was useful to see it in the past. Our past understandings, our stories, often learned long ago, become distorting lenses through which we perceive everything, mostly outside of conscious awareness. Like in this piece from Adam Lawrence Dyer. The little girl, he says, has already been told that she's pretty. She's already been instructed to look for a prince because she is daddy's princess, whatever that is. When they walk along the sidewalk, as they pass the black man, daddy places his hand on his little girl in an unconscious gesture, but one that is real, just the same. He's unaware, but the little girl gets the cue and looks sheepishly at the black man. She stops skipping. The black man doesn't see the family. He's headed to perform surgery or lead litigation or maybe to save the world. No matter. In that moment, he has become black man, permanently connected to the protective hand of daddy. Everyday moments like this become the stories we carry, lenses through which we see race, gender roles, our own potential, each other, everything, with real life consequences. A distorting lens that magnifies our own limits or mistakes might prevent us from noticing good we can bring to the world. Through a lens of entitlement, we might fail to see the harm we do. A lens that tells us the world is overwhelmingly scary will magnify what is scary, drawing us deeper into the fear. And if we view the world through a lens that says, I am the gronger, it's your new word for today, we might make bolder choices and perhaps stretch in new ways. And they affect our connections with one another. Like when we're sure we know what someone else is thinking, or when we stay in a relationship too long or give up on one too soon because we can't see it clearly. When we fail to connect at all because we feel threatened by difference. When we don't recognize someone's cruelty because our distorting lens magnifies other aspects of who we think they are. And lenses of people in power can do widespread harm. As Carolyn mentioned earlier, we're approaching 500,000 people in this country known to have died of COVID. 500,000 deaths. The number is so mind-bogglingly high because we had leaders who carried a story about what mattered most that had nothing to do with saving lives. And we still watch in horror as distorting lenses of fear and entitlement drive people, including some with real power, to keep chipping away at human rights, our democracy, and any possibility for meaningful action on climate change. For many of us, bringing enlightenment to these other people feels urgent. I know I've tried facts, logic, arguments, even pleading. Truth matters. And I hope we will all continue to push back against lies and white supremacy in all its forms, and work to limit the destructive power of people whose perception is dangerously distorted. A distorting lens is not a license to do harm. But the frustrating reality I keep bumping up against is that mostly we can't do much about other people's distorting lenses. At least not that way. But we can do something about our own. Whether or not we believe in a God or devil that influences how we perceive things, we can change how we perceive. We've all done it. We can do it again. And sometimes the impact of that change goes beyond ourselves, expanding what is possible for those around us, maybe even the world. So where might we find those fragments of God's precious perception clarifying window? Think for a moment about a time when your perception shifted. Maybe you did something scary and it turned out okay. Maybe you had a strong opinion and found you were wrong. Maybe you believed you were insignificant and then you were a gronger. Whatever it was, there was a transformative power, a corrective lens of sorts in you. What was it? Was it humility, curiosity, creativity, compassion, courage? Something else? Whatever it was, it is still there in you whenever you need it. And there are other places where I've found God's window. The brave, imperfect spaces in our lives, including, at our best, our congregations. Our third principle speaks of communities of acceptance and spiritual growth. Not communities where we're always comfortable or always in agreement. Even the language I choose to use may not be the language you would choose. But brave spaces where we practice welcome and encountering difference with openness and a willingness to question the assumptions we didn't know we carried. In such spaces, our old flawed stories can lose some of their certainty, opening us up to curiosity and wonder. Is it just a rabbit? Am I really just what I thought I was? Can I wonder about myself, about you? And can I wonder about that person I so desperately want to change? Really wonder, with genuine curiosity about who they are and how they hurt. Sometimes the answer is no. But sometimes, when we open ourselves up to change and find our way to wonder, we make space for others to change as well. And who knows how far that change might go. No one can force a corrective lens on anyone else. But we can grow and change ourselves in ways that make room for others to do the same. May we embark on a life that is not limited by old stories. May we find precious life-changing windows within us and among us. May we find our way to wonder for ourselves and for us all. May it be so. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bill, for that beautiful musical meditation. And Anne, thank you. And thank Michael, too, for sharing stories. And, you know, sermons go down very wispy, windy roads. And I know this sermon was one of those. And you found your way so beautifully into an idea so unique and interesting and compelling and provocative and encouraging. So I am grateful. I'm so grateful for that, Anne. Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful work. Thank you. And so we turn our attention to the element of our liturgy in which we open our hearts in a spirit of generosity. That is our offering. I want to update you all on the progress of our stewardship campaign for our operating budget. The news is good so far. 105 households have returned the forms, pledging forms, either by mail or online, for which we are so grateful. Thank you all. We have raised so far $298,000 has been committed. And so we thank you for that. We thank you that the average increase is 11. And we are just gobsmacked by that and grateful for that. Thank you. A reminder that 410,000 is our goal. It's our pre-pandemic level, basically, of pledges. And if you've not yet turned in your pledge form, either the one you received in the mail or an online form, please do so as quickly as possible. Your lovely, dedicated, but tired stewardship committee would be very appreciative if they didn't have to nudge you and pull your apron strings. So let us begin this portion by speaking the words that we speak together every week. And those words are, we give to the work of All Souls. Our work weaves the fabric of love called community. To this end, we dedicate ourselves and this our offering. The offering will be gratefully received as it is so generously offered. For all that you have shared and all that you have sacrificed, thank you.
We pause now to lift up joys and sorrows of this gathered community. If you would like to share a joy or a sorrow, there are two ways. One is by email to belovedcommunity@allsouls.net. Joys and sorrows that are received by 2 p.m. on Thursday are read aloud in the service. Or now, you can share by entering your joy or sorrow into the chat to be witnessed and held in silence. As you type, we will light candles of intention, holding a minute of silence to give you time to share. Amen. By email this week, Mary Lou shares a sorrow that the Hole in the Wall gang camp suffered a massive fire to 4 buildings. She says the staff and volunteers are now working to restore the buildings and their services to seriously ill children. Thank you for sharing that, Mary Lou. Together we hold all these joys and sorrows, those shared and those deep within our hearts, as we enter into a moment of prayer. Spirit of life and love, for some, this prayer just overflows with gratitude or joy. For some, it's more about the fear or the aloneness that has settled in the heart. For many, it's both. Whatever our need, help us to pray in all our different ways. Help us to make room for joy and wonder and sorrow and loss. Help us to remember that what we perceive right now is not all there is. Help us to know that whatever we're feeling, we're not alone. We are held by this community and by the love that does not let us go. With gratitude for all who journey with us in this complicated world, we say, Amen.
Amen.
Our closing hymn has been foreshadowed a few times. It's Turn the World Around, led by Reverend Caitlin O'Brien.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on
you, Caitlin. I love that song. So fun to sing, and we're so grateful that you sang it for us. And so we will extinguish our chalice led by Allie and family with these words that we speak each week.
Our service has ended, but our work is not yet done. May our spirits be renewed and our purpose resolved as we meet the challenges of the week. Our chalice flame is extinguished until once again ignited by the strength of our communion.
For our closing words, I invite you to place a hand on your heart and reach out with the other toward this community. May we live beyond the limits of old stories. May we find our way to wonder. And may we perceive ourselves and one another that much more clearly. And maybe even turn the world around. Go in peace, return again in great joy. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Oh, I needed that sermon today. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, everybody. That's terrific. All right, couple of quick announcements before beautiful postlude that Bill will offer to us. Today, Faith Formation and Youth Group both will meet after the service. The link was in your emails from Perry and Arlene, so take a look and come on down. Next week, Reverend Caitlin is preaching and Perry will serve as the liturgist, and it's very much a continuation on the themes that Anne shared with us this morning. So we look forward to seeing you here again next week. In the meantime, coffee hour follows immediately. We look forward to seeing you together in person, so to speak, as we do. So yes, see you next week and go in peace all. Thank you.